Hello and welcome to another interactive broadcast on ThePrint YouTube channel with our political editor, Mr. DK Singh, where we'll be discussing the major takeaways from the assembly elections of 2022. Right now, we've got, in terms of counting and then few results being declared, we're looking at the states of Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Manipur, Goa, and Uttarakhand. So, just starting off, like Uttar Pradesh is the largest of these among all the states and has the largest number of assembly seats in the Lok Sabha itself. Looking at these results, or look like whatever has been declared till now and the trends, what is your major takeaways? Just looking at Uttar Pradesh per se.
Overall, look, the takeaways are the same almost for all the states. Basically, if you in individual states, yes, things are different. But when you talk about BJP ruled state, so one of the major takeaways, again, people have been talking about how voters vote differently for Modi and differently for Lok Sabha elections and for assembly elections. So that was how we used to explain whenever the BJP lost, say, in Karnataka in 2018.
Yeah.
And other states, that was the thing. But this time you have seen, because in every BJP ruled state, except Yogi Adityanath, who has a mass base, in other states, actually, the CMs, BJP CMs were quite unpopular. So we saw how Pushkar Dhami he lost the election, but then he didn't have much time. Also, he was the first time he became the CM, and he became the CM in July 2021 only.
Yeah.
But then he could not develop that base for himself. CM himself losing election, although this is a kind of a jinx for BJP chief ministers. If you look at the history of Uttarakhand, basically all the sitting BJP chief ministers have been losing.
Yeah, and we have a copy on this.
Yeah, So last time, you had Harish Rawat losing both his seats. Before that, we saw him Khandori. So this has been on, but BJP CM losing there. Pramod Sawant in Goa, quite a controversial tenure, even the then Goa Governor Satpal Malik, in fact, making allegations of corruption. Then there was a COVID mismanagement. You talk about Manipur CM Biren Singh. No, Biren Singh has been there for all the time, but point is, the NPP, the BJP's partner, was so unhappy with his style of functioning that if you recall, in 2024, of the NPP ministers had walked away, they had resigned, and then Amit Shah had to intervene and bring them back. So when you look at all these results, you just see the Modi stamp. People have voted for PM Modi, and it's interesting because it's coming in the backdrop of COVID, where you heard a lot of things about mismanagement and how the government was not being seen on the ground. Then the economic distress, resultant economic distress, I would say. So whenever you have adversity, it becomes, you have to give it to the BJP. They make an opportunity out of it. So whenever in crisis, voters seem to turn to Modi.
So actually, to take this forward, we've got a bunch of viewer questions, so try incorporating as many as possible. Sharat Marar is asking, so when you're talking about what happens, if there's adversity, turn it around. So what he's asking is, what really happened to the commentary in UP? So real issues like unemployment, stray cattle, the Dalit issues, were all of these, let's say, sidelined, did Modi's charisma and nationalism take precedence?
Those issues were there. But point is, when it comes to door-to-door delivery of the schemes, that made the main difference. Because we heard about unemployment everywhere you went. People were talking about unemployment. You had cattle menace. All these things were being talked about, but people were not really angry about it. That gave us this sense that when you want to dislodge the government, you started speaking against the government. But it was a kind of a sense of resignation. That this is there. Somehow Akhilesh Yadav was not able to project himself as somebody who would solve these problems. So he was more seen as somebody who has done this, who is experimenting with social engineering by bringing non-OBC, non-Yadav OBC leaders into his fold. So it was seen as his social engineering effort rather than an effort to provide an alternative government there, which will solve all these day-to-day problems. So I think there Akhilesh missed the narrative, because he did get people to come around when it comes to social engineering. So if you look at the vote share so far, so Akhilesh's party has got about 10 percentage point more votes than 2017. And compared to that, BJP has gained just about 2 percentage points more.
In fact, they've got more of a vote share now in 2022 than when they got in 2012 when they formed the government as well.
2017, yes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then they had some partners also,
Yeah.
some partners which left them later.
True.
But then if you look at the BSP's vote share, BSP has lost about 10 percentage point votes.
Yeah.
Now, if you lose 10% out of 20, last time they had got 22%. This time they are hovering around something 12 point something, 12.6%. That's what it is. They have lost 10% votes. SP has gained a bit. BJP is there. Despite losing some partners, BJP's vote share has in fact increased marginally. That tells you that people, even if people were upset, they were not so upset that they wanted to dislodge
They
the
wanted
government.
to
In fact, the
change.
main support base stayed with the BJP.
Yeah.
Despite all the talks about COVID mismanagement or whatever is happening there. So the narrative built up by PM Modi, we have talked about the welfare schemes working on the ground. That was good enough for the people. At least something is coming from the government. From the opposition side, it was all anti-BJPism. And anti-BJPism does not really work. I mean, the opposition has to learn their lessons about this.
So you spoke about the BSP, and we've got a question from Pallavi who's asking, did the BSPs, let's say their vote base, she's asking, did that move to the BJP this election?
It's a bit complicated, right? I'm not in a position to say. Probably we'll see some, usually CSDS does these polls.
Yeah.
So once we look at their data, probably we'll have some idea. But the data that we have right now, we are just raw numbers. So BSP's vote share this time is 12.6% or something around that. Last time it was 22%. So obviously BSP has lost almost half of its vote bank.
Yeah.
And we are talking about Jatavs here because usually now the BSP support base is confined to Jatavs.
Sure.
So where have the Jatavs gone? Usually they are not known to go to the SP. So they have to come to the BJP.
Yeah.
But a larger story here is what we call the end of Dalit politics, not just in UP. I mean, across the country you see.
Yeah.
In Bihar we saw how Paswan's son basically, lost the plot. I mean, he's nowhere now.
Yeah.
In UP, then you look at Jitendra Majhi in Bihar, he's nowhere. Some slight chunks of votes they get, that's about it.
Sure.
In Maharashtra, you see Prakash Ambedkar.
Not, yeah.
Nothing happening there. So across the country, somehow, the scheduled caste, which is a substantial chunk of our population, somehow it comes to their voice. BSP was their biggest face.
Yeah.
Now look at the BSP's fate in Punjab, for instance.
Yeah.
Now BSP allied with the Shiromani Akali Dal. It should have got something. It was wiped out. In Uttarakhand again, it has a substantial Dalit population. BSP hasn't won a single seat. So this end of Dalit politics in India is pretty interesting, and it goes to the BJP's advantage.
So moving states right now, you spoke about Punjab where the BSP did not do too well. Someone is now asking, Sanman Bhusari is asking, what does the AAP win in Punjab mean for the Gujarat elections? Because the state goes to polls later this year. So what is...
See, it has given them a big momentum. And what you saw in Gujarat also in the last civic polls, in Surat, the, hotbed of the Patidar agitation, you would say, like one of the hotbeds. There also, I think the AAP managed about 27 seats or so. I mean, it was not a winning number, but it made its presence felt in Surat. Despite the fact that you have the Patidar leader who is the face of the Patidar agitation, who is with the Congress now. So, AAP is getting some resonance. That was, I think, a year back it happened. So AAP is kind of trying to expand its footprint, but somehow AAP was always seen, as a party which will not come to power. For instance, when I was in Punjab, I was traveling with their Kotkapura MLA, Sandhwa, and I was asking him what went wrong in 2017. And his thing was, one was, of course, when people started projecting AAP as a party which is kind of, flirting with the extremist elements.
Yeah.
People got alienated from the AAP because of that. And he was blaming the media for projecting the AAP like this.
Yeah.
Then one of the factors he was saying that, while we had tremendous support of the people, somehow we could not convince them that we would be able to form the government, which has happened now. So in other states also, say Gujarat or Himachal, suddenly the Aam Aadmi Party has become a big alternative. And this is actually the biggest takeaway from this election. It's a kind of, there's a fundamental shift in national politics now. So you have, we were just writing on 50-word edit on this, that, you have a change party now which is gaining ground. Earlier it was limited to Delhi, and most of the people actually gave credit to, Anna Hazare movement and how Kejriwal became part of it, and there was massive 15 years of anti-incumbency against Sheila Dikshit government, and that's how AAP came, because the BJP could not really come up as an alternative. But once AAP has moved to Punjab, so the momentum it will generate, that will actually carry on. It maybe Gujarat, they may or may not be in a position to win, but you will have to watch out for what AAP does there, because AAP will grow at the expense of the Congress. True. See, other regional parties, when you look at them in other states, they are pretty well ensconced. They are okay, but the states where you have the Congress, where people are saying that, the Congress is not becoming an alternative. So you have non-BJP voters. National level, we saw BJP got 38%, there were 62% non-BJP voters. Yeah. In every state, you have the same, wherever BJP is the ruling party, a dominant party, and the Congress is the alternative. Now, when people start losing faith in the Congress, once they start seeing that, probably this party is not going to dislodge the BJP, it is incapable of doing that. And I'm talking about, when I say people, I'm talking about the people who usually vote against the BJP. For them, the AAP has emerged as an alternative now. So Punjab can become a big launchpad for the AAP to expand its footprint everywhere in the country now. Let's see how it goes further.
Sure. When you spoke about the AAP cutting into the Congress's votes, we have a question actually along similar lines. So Rohan Bedekar has asked that, do you see the Congress party splitting up after the Punjab results in the debacle which has happened right now?
It has been splitting. Look, the implosion has been happening off and on. So it doesn't have to be, 78 kind of a split or 69 kind of a split. That nationally you have, so many top leaders leaving, because Congress, you do not have those leaders in the Congress now, leaders who have a mass base in their own states also. So that kind of a split you don't see, but they'll be chipping away. You heard about G20, you have been talking about G23 in the Congress. There are many others. They have been holding on because they don't have any alternative. They do not have their own mass base. But gradually, these implosions will keep chipping away, and you will see the Congress shrinking and shrinking further. So you won't have really big split as such. But smaller splits happening all the time. This leader leaving, that leader leaving, and maybe at some point of time, some mass leaders that the Congress is left with, who are not really happy with the way they are being treated in the party. Say Bhupinder Hooda in Haryana, for instance. Yeah. He's sidelined. He's the most popular leader there. From the Congress side, he's totally sidelined. You have somebody like Sachin Pilot in Rajasthan. He has his own mass base. But, we saw what happened in the past. And Sachin Pilot, none of his demands have been met as such, except accommodating some of his people as ministers. Yeah. So, if these people at some point of time start thinking that we are not getting our due in the party, maybe you will start seeing some splits here and there. I'm not saying they'll split away. All I'm saying is these are the potential areas where the Congress may see some splits happening. Sure. If the Gandhis don't mend their ways. And when I say don't mend their ways, it's about sitting with them, talking with party leaders. It's this kind of attitude right now what you see, that sense of entitlement, that you want to stay, fine, you don't want to stay, you can go away. Yeah. That attitude will not work, because now you are left only in two states.
That's true.
Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan. And in Chhattisgarh, you are allowing TK Singh Revathi. He's a veteran leader, but you are allowing him to kind of, a snipe at Baghel, who is a popular leader. In Rajasthan, of course, you have this Ashok Gehlot versus Sachin Pilot
even
fight
in the
happening.
Two states where they're in power, there's
and the High Command is not able to actually assert themselves.
Yeah. When you're talking about the high command, this is a follow-up question from me. When you're talking about the high command, with they better mend their ways, do you think Punjab is enough of a shock for them for a change in the high command itself?
I don't really think it will change, but Punjab is biggest example in front of you today, how they have messed up the party. Now they were very comfortable until say September, October last year, because Akali Dal had actually, because of being part of the NDA, which NDA government at the center, which brought those contentious laws, Akali Dal had lost its vote base.
Yeah,
it was on the margins. AAP was totally splintered. There was no direction and there was no face as such. Then the Gandhis decided to destabilize them, to rock their own boat actually, by ousting Amrinder Singh.
Yeah.
And now just look at them. And if you look, now AAP has replaced them in Punjab. They have actually snatched defeat from victory actually. That's how the Congress has managed. And the Gandhis have to take the entire blame for this, nothing else. Because what the people in Punjab saw, Akali Dal, of course, on the sideline because of farmers' agitation and all that.
Yeah.
And the other party is, totally in a mess. Every day you have the state unit chief, state Congress chief, Navjot Singh Sidhu, sniping at the chief minister. Another party leader would say, somebody like Sunil Jakha would say, okay, I am retiring from electoral politics. Every leader is tweeting something or the other, every day against the CM, against the government. Now, this kind of chaos that you created, Gandhi is responsible for this because it was for them to win.
Yeah.
And they have managed to lose. So, the Congress people's trust in the family will further erode.
True. So, a larger question, like taking a bird's eye or zoomed lens on this. So, Ankur Yadav is asking, what impact will these elections have on the presidential elections?
We are just mining the data. So, probably by tomorrow we should be able to tell you, because the last time we mined, the NDA did not have a clear majority.
Sure.
So it was a bit of a struggle. So we are doing this data mining again because, in the UP Assembly also there have been changes. They have gained a few seats in, say, Goa or Manipur. Uttarakhand, they have lost 10 seats. So that collegium has undergone a bit of a change after this election. So by tomorrow morning, sometime tomorrow, our story should be out. Please read that story. But as it is, I think, probably the NDA is falling short of some votes there. So it will really have to do some management.
Sure. We're only 2 years away from the 2024 Lok Sabha elections. So we have another question coming from a reader who's asking that as a takeaway from these elections, what will be the impact of the internal politics inside the BJP? In terms of, and then later on opposition Mahagathbandhan for the 2024. What did this spell for?
See, when you talk about internal politics, I'm sure you must be referring to all these conspiracy theories that, now that Yogi Adityanath is there, he is going to be the PM, Modi's successor, not Amit Shah. And all these fights will happen.
Yeah.
There could be some element of truth in the sense that, yes, you have got a very powerful chief minister now, chief minister of India's most populous state, which brings 80 members to the Lok Sabha. And he has got a second term. It's a historic thing because no other BJP CM could ever do that. And he's assertive. He's ambitious, of course. So what is he going to do next? Everybody will be watching for that. But at the same time, see, as long as Modi is here, I don't think he's going to allow anybody to basically, let go of their ambitions and anybody to actually, start hurting the party by working for their own ambitions, personal ambitions.
Sure.
So as long as he is there, nothing is going to happen. In the run-up to 2024, nothing will happen. Modi will remain. Yes, sometimes in 26, 27, 28, we don't know. But everything will depend on when PM Modi decides to hang up his boots. As long as he is there, no such internecine fight is going to happen as people are expecting. Because they will have working relationship. Don't forget, Amit Shah remains the chief strategist. He has a grip on the BJP organization. Yogi is different. His strength is his mass base in UP and his popularity outside UP also. So both have their own strength areas. Yogi Adityanath is not an organization man. He cannot fight an election.
Yeah.
He may be popular, but he does not know how to fight election. That Amit Shah knows.
That to
So-
national level, yeah.
Yeah, so both of them have their strengths and weaknesses, you can say, in a way that, Yogi does not have that organizational skill. Amit Shah is not as popular as Modi,
Yeah.
as Yogi. But as long as Modi is there, these things have to be balanced. I mean, I don't really see the Prime Minister allowing any such rivalry to actually crop up.
Sure. And then looking at, let's say, the second part of the question, looking at the opposition Mahagathbandhan for 2024, because a lot was
That
said
will be very
after-
interesting. A day after the exit poll results, AAP MLA Somnath Bharti issued a statement calling K. Chandrasekhar Rao arrogant, Chhota Modi, somebody in whose state no development has happened, and there was no provocation as such. So the message you got was like, look, AAP is looking nationally. So while KCR, who has been meeting chief ministers and leaders of different regional parties to try to force an anti-BJP, anti-Congress front, Mamta has also been doing that separately. And they have not been consulting Arvind Kejriwal. So Arvind Kejriwal was not even trying to get into that. Now, after this, after exit polls made it clear that the AAP is going to win another state, AAP later attacking the KCR gives you a lot of messages. The message is not just for KCR, the message is for Mamta. That all you parties, we don't care about this front, I am the alternative. So either you stand behind me or do your own stuff. I am going ahead, I am the principal challenger to the BJP, or I am going to be the principal challenger. So this so-called third front and all, you will see a lot of developments now. Because Kejriwal is not somebody, now Kejriwal is he's the numero uno, you can call, in the opposition camp. Because Congress has been declining in every election. And here is a party which is coming up. So Kejriwal, instead of trying to be one among all these opposition leaders, trying to forge a front, he would try to be the face, because Modi versus Rahul contest is gone.
Yeah.
There is no Modi versus Rahul contest. Rahul has lost there, absolutely. So it's like Modi versus who now? Kejriwal would like to step into there.
And do you see any other leaders stepping into the ring? Like for example, Mamta Banerjee, because she also won a huge mandate in Bengal.
But on her own, she can't do much. We saw what happened in Goa. Trinamool has not won a single seat. Trinamool has managed about 5% vote share, but that's about it. In Goa also, AAP managed 2 seats, although its vote share remained almost constant, below 7% this time, as it was in 2017 also. But AAP got two MLAs there also.
Sure.
So AAP would be thinking of expanding further instead of wasting time forging a so-called third front, which has never worked after United Front.
Yeah. There's another question coming from another viewer of ours who's asking, what is the future of Navjot Singh Sidhu after these elections within the Congress?
I really wonder, because he has lost the election. And everybody in the Congress knows that if the Congress has lost Punjab, and much of the credit must go to Navjot Singh Sidhu. I mean, it's like mission accomplished. We have destroyed the party. Do you still want to go with the same state chief now? Or do you want to go for a change? It will all depend on how the Gandhis look at this election. Are they going to learn some lessons from it? Or are they going to, continue with that sense of entitlement? I have decided it will remain this way only. So what they do with Navjot Singh Sidhu will also give us a signal as to what the Gandhis are thinking about the way forward.
Sure. There's another question which is asking, now everyone's looking at each state and then asking for a leadership change. Will there be a leadership change in the Samajwadi Party after, let's say, consistent defeats?
No, there is no challenger as such, And you have to give it to Akhilesh also. He did put up a spirited fight. Just that his strategy of that social engineering did not really work for him.
And the vote share has substantially
And
increased.
vote share has increased.
Yeah.
I mean, in 2017, SP's vote share was just about 22%. Now it's 32%. So, but point is the narrative he should have built. That's where he failed.
Sure.
So, Akhilesh, I don't think there is going to be a leadership change. But yes, there will be a lot of, disquiet in the party about the way he had been running the party. Because again, it has become very centralized. He and a few of his people are running the party. So, I hope there are some debates, but then Akhilesh will have to change his approach also. Look, after 2017, Akhilesh almost disappeared from the scene. Then again came 2019. You saw him there. Then again he disappeared. You cannot be doing politics on Twitter, although you have to concede that, okay, in the run-up to this election, he worked very hard. For the last 4-5 months, in fact, he was always on the ground. But this last-minute effort does not
Maybe you have to
pay
do it
much
consistently
when you
earlier,
are fighting with the party, which is, working 24/7.
That's true.
Party work right from top to the grassroots level. What are you seeing now? Exit polls over. You saw Amit Shah in Tripura, which will go to polls next year. Now tomorrow, the Prime Minister will be going to Gujarat, another poll-bound state. So they finish one mission and go on to another right away. When you look at opposition leaders, win or lose, they sit back home, oh fine, I have done that, now I'll see what I should do 5 years later or 4.5 years
leave
later.
the country.
So it doesn't work in today's politics in India.
Sure. There's one question looking at Punjab, saying that the Badal family members have lost in the Punjab elections. How will the SAD revive itself and reconnect with the people?
That you have to see. Look, Akali Dal still has a cadre base. But in this election, looks like given by the sweep that the AAP got,
Sure.
I think that base has also shifted to the Aam Aadmi Party. So it's going to be grueling, next 5 years for the Badals.
Yeah.
Because they are also kind of, they are thoroughly discredited in the sense that, there have been a lot of allegations of corruption, mismanagement, this, that against the Badals for the 10 years that they were in power. Even when Captain Amrinder Singh came, it was like, the Badal and Amrinder Singh working in cahoots. So that's how established parties got discredited, and that's how Akali Dal also lost its cadres. But the fact is, it's the oldest party there.
Yeah.
Even now, if Sukhbir Singh Badal decides to kind of, fight back to revive the party from where it is now, it can still happen because you do not really see any opposition now. So whether Badal and the Congress allow Punjab to become like Delhi where there is no opposition,
Sure.
or are they going to work as constructive opposition parties and win back the goodwill of the people?
Sure. Talking about the leader of the opposition, Janvi is asking that in terms of the leader of the opposition, in terms of the Congress, do we see, let's say, Pratap Singh Bajwa emerging as a dark horse?
Very difficult to say, very difficult to say. But don't forget, Pratap Singh Bajwa was also in the opposition camp, and he was not very happy when Channi was made the chief minister.
Sure.
And Bajwa was the one who was leading the pack of detractors against Captain Amrinder Singh when it started. Navjot Singh Sidhu came much later on the scene. But he is a veteran leader, he has been a family loyalist.
Yeah.
So if the Congress decides to reward him in a different thing, I cannot really tell you anything concrete right now on this. But then he has also been sulking. So whether the Congress High Command decides to experiment something, do something drastic in Punjab to stay afloat, or it allows things to kind of carry on like this and go for extinction. We'll have to wait and watch.
Just to circle back, when you're talking about the SAD, how much do you think that the farmers' agitation impacted the SAD and its prospects in these elections?
Initially, yes. Initially, there was a lot of anger in the SAD. But what happened over a period of time, somehow the farmers' agitation fizzled out.
Sure.
Fizzled out in the sense once they got what they wanted. And then they, half of them, about 22 farmers' parties, they decided to take a plunge into politics.
Yeah.
So the entire thing got discredited.
Sure.
So when I was traveling in Punjab, I was talking to farmers. They were very dismissive of this farmers' leaders who were contesting
electoral
polls. But because we are not doing it for politics. That happened, but that did not help the Akali Dal to regain its vote bank as such. Because once you got discredited, not much was happening, and voters' aspirations were different. If you go to Punjab, the kind of things you see on the ground,
Sure.
a state which was once known for the Green Revolution, is today known for, is being called Udta Punjab. So that's the state of affairs now. Akali Dal was not able to even in the past 5 years when it was in the opposition, it did not really put up any fight for people's cause. So it got discredited. We have talked about the Congress, and that's how the Aam Aadmi Party has come. And for this party also, it's going to be a very challenging road ahead. It's not going to be that easy.
Yeah. So we actually have a bunch of questions still streaming in, but we've passed the half an hour mark for our lives, I'm sure.
I can keep answering. I mean, please
I
write
know
me the questions.
DK can
I'll
answer them either on
Sure.
Twitter or respond to your YouTube questions. So please do continue sending them. And we have a bunch of other lives on our interactive broadcast. So stay tuned throughout the day. It's not over just yet. Thank you so much and keep staying tuned to our social media handles.
Thanks for watching. Thanks, Revathi.
Thanks, sir.